Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Abayim to everybody today, Wednesday, the 26th day of Iyar, corresponding to the 20th of May, 41st day of the counting of the Omer. Today's class graciously sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Ivor and Robin Braca, Le'ilui Nishmat, Mr. Braca's mother, Mrs. Pauline Braca, Aliyah Shalom, founder of the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue, together with her beloved husband, David Alev Shalom, as well as sons, Ivor, and many members of the Kahal. Le'ilui Nishmat, today's class, Pauline Rose, Batya Aliyah Shalom, someone that personally know from my early days at the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue, wonderful lady, refined lady, the matriarch, perhaps we can say, of the Braca family that merited to see children and grandchildren and even grandchildren following in the beautiful pathways of our Torah, our Mizvot and Ma'asim Tovim. And definitely, together with her dear husband, David Alev Shalom, David Sr., who is lovingly known in our Kahal, God injected into the heart the desire and the decision to spearhead this particular project known as the Edmond J. Safra Synagogue of Temporary, Florida, or Aventura, Florida, the way many people call it. So definitely, despite her physical disappearance, she's getting her daily zechuyot, her daily dosage of merits and blessings for everything that goes in our beautiful and holy institution. For many members of the Kahal that usually spend Hanukkah here in the warm winter of Florida, remember to see the very large size Hanukkah graciously donated by Mrs. Pauline Braca that is basically used every year to commemorate the magnificent celebration of Hanukkah, and we use it, and it's definitely a great merit for us to be able to say a few words of Torah in her loving memory. So Be'ezat Hashem, let us hope and pray that today, the day of her Askara, the day of her yortzeit, her Neshama will be elevated in Gan Eden. Amen. As we're coming today to the 41st day of Sefirat HaOmer, we are already finishing basically this particular week of the Omer, the 6th week of the Omer, and we only have 1 week left basically for the beautiful celebration of Shavuot. So today's host is Yosef Hasadik. We have been with him since last Friday, and who does he welcome today? So interesting enough, today's Sefirah, it's called Yesod Sheva Yesod, the foundation within the foundation. If several days in a row we understood what is the meaning of foundation, which it means personal holiness, husband and wife, physical relationship, and the foundation of holiness in our life as Yehudim. So let's try to understand what does it mean today that the Sefirah is Yesod Sheva Yesod, foundation within the foundation. So first of all, we need to remember one thing. Every day in our morning Shaharit prayers, we have the prayer of Yoser, and we say in one of the prayers of Yoser, המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. המחדש בטובו, the one that in his goodness renews, בכל יום, every day, תמיד, constantly, מעשה בראשית, the work of the creation. So what does this verse mean in our daily prayers? Connected to today's Sefirah, it means that every instant of the day must be a flow of godliness that permeates the world and allows the world to continue on its natural path. Although we call it nature, but actually the Torah calls nature godliness. Hence the word nature and God's name are the same numerical value. This is one. Number two, without any hesitation, the world goes through challenges at many levels. And everybody agrees that today, at this situation that we are all experiencing tonight, or shouldn't say tonight, but now, for the past few weeks, we understand that something is going on. Something is different. As I may have mentioned one of the classes yesterday, we need to adjust ourselves to the new normal, the way the mayor of Miami-Dade County wrote a Shulchan Aruch, wrote a new book of statutes known as the new normal, protocol to follow, to gradually try to reignite and reactivate the dormant economy that we are all experiencing at all levels, and obviously safeguarding the health issues and health matters of everyone. By the way, tonight, and I want to say this before I forget, and Be'ezat Hashem I'll try to remind everybody at the end, at 8:15, live through itorah.com or through my Zoom channel, for those that have access to it, we are going to be welcoming Rabbi David Asher from Brooklyn, that's going to talk about the topic, obviously, of Emunah, the current pandemic, and the relationship to Shavuot. He does not need my introduction. He's a wonderful young Talmid Chacham that through his essence and his Torah knowledge was able to spread through the world a magnificent and beautiful message of Emunah, which, without any hesitation, if there is one area in our life that constantly requires reinforcement and reminding ourselves, is the topic of Emunah. So Be'ezat Hashem, tonight at 8:15, log in to itorah.com or to my Zoom channel, and Be'ezat Hashem will be able to see each other virtually. Coming back, I just talked about Emunah. You know what pasuk is floating through my mind? Tzaddik ve'emunato ihyeh. The righteous lives with faith. And I will clarify. The righteous in that verse is not related to one particular specific individual. But you know what makes the righteous the righteous? Because the Emunah keeps the foundation of life alive. How do we know this? The way people react in certain situations, which sometimes tend to be adverse or different than they are hoped or they are expected. Somebody shared with me earlier today a beautiful message from the great Nefesh HaHaim, Rabbeinu Haim of Volozhin, very famous, great Talmid Chacham, that writes, and it says that If a person wants to have an ideal formula to minimize the headaches, challenges, and difficulties in life, which we all have. We are humans, and as humans, we have ups and downs. But you know what the great Nefesh HaChaim writes? When I saw it, I said, I need to share this with our Kahal. That the more a person believes that there is a godly element involved even in that adversity, that thought or that spark of emunah that a person displays internally, not allowing the problem to overcome the person's life or to bring down the spirit of the person, God forbid, that thought alone causes the person that the Shamayim starts reversing the negativity or the challenge that is in front of the person. Again, maybe easier for me to say it and to share it, and I hope that with the same easiness that I was able to understand it and accept it to the best of my abilities, because at the end of the day we are humans. I hope that this short word of Rabbeinu Chaim of Volozhin perhaps brings upon us a ray of light or a ray of hope that we are able to overcome the challenges that come our way. And challenges comes in many different shapes and forms. Not two challenges are alike, because not two people are alike. And that reminds me the famous statement of the great sage in the Talmud, known as Nahum Ish Gamzu, the famous sage that he had a saying, Gamzu letova, also this shall be for good. And the Baal Shem Tov says that the moment that a person verbalizes these words, this shall also be for good. So, from adversity, from something negative, to become something positive. The great Rabbeinu Moshe Cordovero, the Ramak, explains why this formula of Nahum Ish Gamzu is so powerful. Just to understand, Nahum Ish Gamzu was in the time of the Talmud. He was one of the teachers of Rabbi Akiva, by the way. That was 2,000 years ago, give or take. Rabbeinu Moshe Cordovero, give or take 500 years ago. And the Baal Shem Tov around 300 years ago. And they all say the same, from a different perspective. Rabbeinu Moshe Cordovero says, do you know why Nahum Ish Gamzu will say Gamzu letova? Why couldn't he say Gamze letova? The way we usually speak in Hebrew, Ze means this. Tavili et sefer hazeh. Bring me this book. If it's so many classes and so many schools are utilizing this particular platform to keep our children and our students occupied with a certain level of stay-at-home restriction, that we hope and pray that Be'ezat Hashem things will start getting better and better day after day, and the numbers they keep declining and not has shalom the opposite. But Rabbi Moshe Cordovero explains, you know what is the meaning of the word zu? The numerical value, he says, of the word zu is Zayin and Vav. The letter Zayin equals to the number 7. The number Vav, the letter Vav, equals to the number 6. If we put together these two numbers, what do we have? The magic number 13. And what is 13? Many meanings, but one of the main ones, the 13 attributes of mercy of God. So the Rabbi Moshe Cordovero says that when Nahomish Gamzu will say Gamzu Letova, at that moment he was sending a message to the heaven by saying, I know, God, that this is for my ultimate good. Even though we don't understand it at times, even though it may be very difficult for us to decipher what good could be in a certain given situation, but this is how the great sage teaches us, that the more we see at life and the more we see at the world with a certain dosage of godliness, is like you look at the world. I'm looking at the window, I see the same buildings, I see the same trees, I see everything the same. What does that mean? That nothing changed from yesterday till today? Maybe for a person that their emunah it's very limited, it means that nothing happened. Very passive mindset. According to the prayer that I quoted before, HaMehadesh betubo bechol yom, God that renews with His goodness every day, tamid, constantly. What does that mean, constantly? That for that to exist, for that to function, for us to exist, it must be a constant flow of godliness. Otherwise, that will not be able to function or to exist in the world. And that is part of the Sefirah today, besides the personal holiness topic that we discussed a couple of days ago. Today's message is to understand En od milevado. There is nothing else that exists in the world like the essence of godliness. Of course, it exists money, physical life, marriage, children, grandchildren, synagogues. All that is true, and nobody, God forbid, minimizes any of the above. But we need to understand who is the director of the orchestra, who is the pilot of society, who is the pilot of life. And according to what we are learning, is the essence of Hashem that keeps everything running. So somebody may ask, are you telling me that also the virus that we are dealing with, it's a godly matter? Of course, can only be a godly matter and cannot be human. Although there is conspiracy theories that human hands are involved or not involved, that's not obviously for us or for the Torah platform to talk about these topics, because we really don't know, and there is a lot of interest created all around. But one thing is for sure, usually certain conditions may be relevant to weather, may be relevant to poverty, may be relevant to the lack of cleanliness or the lack of hygiene. But in our scenario that we are all experiencing, guess what? We are all on the same boat. We are all in the Ark of Noah. All of us. And we are moving with the waves of the turbulent waters that sometimes life brings upon a person. But guess what? Sometimes when people travel, they take like a motion sickness type of medicine. I think it's called Dramamine, I believe. Drowsy or non-drowsy, I'm not telling you to take it, but guess what? For those who take it when they travel, how do they feel? They feel calm, they feel relaxed, they may even sleep, and when they arrive at the destination, they feel better and healthy and strong. Obviously, we are not promoting for people to take that, but we are promoting, let's call it the way we call it in our society today, the homeopathic type of pill. And this pill is called emunah. And that's why the verse says, Sadiq be'emunato ihye. You want to survive the turbulent waters of life? If you connect yourself to the main frame of godliness, known as emunah, you will become a Sadiq. You will become a righteous person. And let me clarify, the word Sadiq has many meanings and many levels. Some of them are based more on observance, how strict the person is on their observance and on their behavior overall. But in this particular verse from the prophet, is telling us, if we have the vitamin of emunah, our deficiencies will be under control. We're going to be able to have the foundation of faith in godliness. And guess what? Many times, people drown, God forbid, in a cup of water. That is an expression. Yani, at the first situation or at the first setback, powerful level of emunah that he had. And where do we learn the Mehillah that Yosef As-Saddiq had emunah? We see it several times. He had the emunah of Hashgacha Peratit. He had faith in God, in the topic of divine providence, which we mentioned perhaps a week ago as one of the 13 principles of faith, is to understand that there is divine providence in life. Even when we meet people, when we speak to people, or we come across Torah messages, there is always a message that if a person wants to open up the ears, the brain, or their heart, that message will be part of our intake of the message that Hashem is giving us through the words of Torah. How many times Yosef As-Saddiq, especially in the story of the dream that Paro had, or the dream of the baker and the butler, or even later on when Yosef As-Saddiq reveals himself to his brothers, what key word does he use? Ha'elokim ya'aneh et shalom Paro ki lemihya shelachani Elokim alechem. In all these verses that Yosef talks about God, he uses the word Elokim. What is the meaning of the name of God, Elokim? So, from Kabbalistic perspective, like in the human body, we mentioned in the past that there is the right side of the human body and the left side of the human body, and we explained that the right side is the more compassionate and more benevolent and more merciful. Hence the mother, the female, is connected to the right side of the body, and the male, it's all about discipline, self-control, restraint, but also in the name of God, there are different names that God has. If we see God's name, numerical value 26, Yod Ke Vav Ke, the way it's found in the prayer books, Baruch Ata Amunai, that means the name of Hashem connected to compassion, mercy, benevolence, kindness, tolerance, patience, and all of the beautiful attributes that are illustrated in the 13 attributes of mercy of God. But parallel to that, there is another God's name known as Elohim. Elohim, that name is actually the name of judgment, the name of justice, the name of God that sometimes delivers wake-up call messages or situations to the life of the person. So Yosef, in part, is saying to his brothers, you think that you sold me and you brought me to Egypt? Maybe you did the transaction, but I understand that there is a godly element involved in this essence of me being a slave in Egypt, of me being put in captivity in jail in Egypt, being promoted to the top, being the viceroy of Egypt, and now being responsible for feeding Egypt, all the citizens, and the many countries around Egypt that were experiencing the concept of famine. Look at Yosef. Yosef could have perhaps, hide himself in a cave or in a corner and say, how can I live? How can I survive? I'm alone. My parents are in Israel. My brothers really don't like me. I'm surrounded by adversity. I'm surrounded by Gentiles. I'm surrounded by idolatry, by immorality. I'm surrounded by an environment that how can I survive? I'm going to fall right away. But, Baruch Hashem, to our benefit and to our survival, Yosef lived. And perhaps this is another explanation when we say Sadiq. Perhaps we can add that this word Sadiq is also refers to Yosef as Sadiq. Be'emunato, through his faith, he was able to live. And as I said many weeks ago, we all carry a DNA of Yosef because we are all survivors. And I'm not referring, God forbid, survivors of the Holocaust. That is a whole different level. We're talking about survivors of our own life, survivors of our own challenges and situations and ups and downs that sometimes life brings upon the person. But as Rabbeinu Chaim of Volozhin in the Nefesh HaChaim says, if we wholeheartedly believe that situations in life that relates to judgment, what do we say? Hashem Echad. Even judgment, even rough patches or a rocky road in life, Hashem Ehad, is part of the master plan for our goodness. I'm not saying that for learning with us together 45 minutes or more sometimes, automatically we're going to press a button and we're going to have like the dishwasher, press 3 buttons and then close the door, make sure to put the soap, the pod, and then khalas, you come back an hour later and all the dishes are done. I wish that that happens in our life, but at least if we are able to start, opening up a bit of a opening in our spiritual life, in our heart, in our emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, each one in our level can develop that emunah, that bitachon, that trust and confidence that we have in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, what is today's exercise? So as we know, in the Omer, we divide the activity into 3 levels. In my relationship with God, in my relationship with our fellow men, and in my own personal, private, alone type of mission. So today's mission, I think in a godly level, it's simply to recognize God's presence in our life. And even when we may think, as the song says, that God could be MIA, missing in action, there is no such a thing. Even in the situation of challenges, God is with the person. And I'm confident that I can say something else. According to our holy rabbis, many times God's revealed himself to us specifically through challenging situations in life. Is that God is telling us, I'm here next to you. Call me. You see me. You feel me. You sense me. Call me. And we already know the verse. When we call God, he answers. There is no voicemail. There is no answering machine. There is no, can I call you later question, automatic. There is no sorry, I can talk now. The pasuk says, Karata, call upon God, vaya'aneni, and I will answer you at all levels. Number 2, one of the topics that the exercise of the day discusses is the topic of privacy and the topic of confidentiality. Basically, being able to keep a secret. The Talmud tells us that when it came the whole encounter between Yosef and Paro made Yosef swear that he will keep a secret. And I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. Paro, lack of knowledge of the Hebrew language. And for many years, I think till the end of Yosef's life, this secret was kept. Megillat Esther, Esther Hamalka. What does Mordechai says to Esther? Don't say, En Esther magedet molatah bet ammah. Esther does not reveal to Ahasuerus her origin, her background, her religion, and that's one of the reasons why Esther is called Esther. According to our Megillah, even the original name of Esther was Hadassah, like the Hadass. That's the name of Esther, but we call it Esther. What's the meaning of the word Esther? Esther comes from the word seter, hidden. Esther means hiding. She hid her religion and her origin until came the moment of the salvation, in which Mordechai and Esther exposed themselves to Ahasuerus by telling him who they were, specifically Esther, in the moment of the meal found towards the end of Megillat Esther. So here the message of today is that a person should be very strict and very careful when people share with us secrets. Or sometimes you hear a different term. I think it's called in English gag order. Why it's called gag order? Gag comes from the throat, gagging. And they don't want that the person should say anything. Yeah, they're putting a leash around the neck of the person, don't talk. So what does it mean? That they are afraid that a person will be talking. Guess what? As Yehudim, we don't need gag orders. We don't even need confidentiality agreements. From a Torah perspective, privacy in the life of a Jew, it's part of modesty. Modesty is not only on the dress code, which is important, we know, but modesty is also in the way we interact with people, in the way we keep secrets, in the way we keep the confidentiality between ourselves, and not saying and not sharing information, which this is something that today, with social media and all the different social platforms that are around us, is not as easy as it was in the past. That's why we're going to encourage people to post things which may be inappropriate or offensive or just a breach of trust between people. And that's why you can't just record someone without asking permission. That also follows under the banner of confidentiality and respect to privacy. Like there is privacy in the bathroom, Hamabdil, there is privacy in the life of the person. And this is the message that we learn today. Respecting the other, by respecting the privacy, by respecting the secrets, by respecting the confidentiality that a person may have shared with you, especially in the world of the rabbis, especially in the field of medicine or psychology, or that's why there is something called, and I think in American law, which is very common, the HIPAA law, which basically means that the doctor or the doctor's office cannot reveal anything about the person due to HIPAA law, to protect the privacy of the patient. Obviously, the patient can allow his spouse or a third party to be aware, but on a regular basis, due to confidentiality agreement, the doctor cannot reveal anything. You call a hospital and you ask, how is this patient doing? Guess what? They will not tell you. unless they verify that he's the spouse or a member of the clergy registered with the hospital, the way it works here. That could be an exception because you're calling to inquire about the welfare of the person. I think it's a very beautiful message that the Sefirah of today gives us. Another message now between the person themselves. One of the messages is that a person should try to become an example to others to emulate. Regretfully, many times, we speak at funerals or at eulogies or at the 7-day Ereyat or 30 days Ereyat that regretfully do happen, and we start to illustrate the beautiful character traits of the individual, which is the concept of Shem Tov. How does a person builds a good name? Like we mentioned before, Mrs. Pauline Braca, Alea Shalom, Pauline Rose Bat Sarina. She lived her life. God blessed her with longevity. God blessed her with the spirit that together with her husband and her son built this magnificent shul, which is not only a synagogue. It's a synagogue, a youth center, a midrashah for ladies, a worldwide international type of synagogue, a kollel, a mikveh, and all the beautiful things that go in our synagogue. And yet we are in a little bit of a recession this time, but Be'ezat Hashem, we are confident that Borei Olam will reveal His ultimate mercy upon us, and we're going to be able to gradually to resume the many beautiful things that are going on in all synagogues. We are all on the same situation, and we are looking forward soon, Be'ezat Hashem, to be able to gradually restore the services at the synagogue with guidelines, obviously, to preserve the life and health of everyone. So imagine yourself that they write a biography about you. What will they write? Besides the physical and the family, what they will write? I will have everything ready. Now, to most of us, this sounds extreme, even crazy, God forbid. And Baruch Hashem, the fellow was blessed with many more additional years of life. Baruch Hashem. But I ask you a question. What people can say about us? Don't answer me. And remember,